Stories podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Weldin. Today's story is called Piglet and Pooh Hunt for a Woozle, written for you by A. Milne and adapted for audio by Daniel Hinds. Thanks! Enjoy the episode! Piglet and Pooh Hunt for a Woozle. Once upon a time, in the 100-acre wood, there was a small little piglet named Piglet. He was most definitely small, but he lived in a very grand house in the middle of a beech tree, and the beech tree lived right in the middle of the forest, and Piglet lived right in the middle of the house. He often had his friends Pooh Bear and Christopher Robin over for tea, or snacks or honey. Or, in Pooh's case, all three, plus some cream and berries and whatever else happened to be laying around. Next to the house was a piece of broken board, an old sign that said in big bold letters, "Trespassers W" on it. When Christopher Robin, who was the best and only reader in the group, asked what it meant, Piglet said it was his grandfather's name and that the house had been in the family for a very long time. To this, Christopher Robin said that you couldn't be called Trespassers W, and Piglet said yes, you could, because his grandfather was, and if he just had to know, it was short for Trespassers Will, which, of course, was short for Trespassers William. His grandfather, Piglet had said proudly, had had two names in case he ever lost one. He was named Trespassers after an uncle, and William came after Trespassers. "I've got two names, too," said Christopher Robin carelessly. "Well, there you are," said Piglet. "That just proves it. Trespassers William. What a great old granddad he was." At any rate, one fine winter's day when Piglet was brushing away the snow in front of his house, he happened to look up, and there was Winnie the Pooh. Pooh was walking round and round in a circle, thinking of something else, tapping his fuzzy yellow chin with a fuzzy yellow paw, and when Piglet called to him, he just went on walking. "Hello?" said Piglet, getting louder and closer. "Pooh! Hello! What are you doing?" "Hunting," said Pooh quietly, looking this way and that as though someone might be listening. "Hunting what?" asked Piglet, suddenly afraid. After all, he was very small, and he thought it more likely that he was the one being hunted by something big and hungry. "I'm tracking something," said Winnie the Pooh very mysteriously. "Tracking what?" said Piglet, coming closer. "That's just what I ask myself. I ask myself, what?" "Well, what do you think you'll answer?" asked Piglet. "I shall have to wait until I catch up with it," said Winnie the Pooh. "Now look there." He pointed to the ground in front of him. "What do you see there? Anything suspicious? Anything huntable? Anything trackable?" "Tracks!" said Piglet. "Paw marks!" He gave a little squeak of excitement. "Oh, Pooh! Do you think it's a woozle?" "It may be," said Pooh. "Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. You never can tell with paw marks." With these few words, he went on tracking, round and round in a great big circle around Piglet's beech tree house, and Piglet, after watching him for a minute or two, ran after him. It was better to be next to a bear if there was a woozle about, even a soft and silly bear like Winnie the Pooh, who had come to a sudden stop and was bending over the tracks in a puzzled sort of way. "What's the matter?" asked Piglet, huddling close to his friend. "It's a very funny thing," said Pooh Bear, "but there seem to be two animals now. This, whatever it was, has been joined by another, whatever it is, and the two of them are now proceeding in company, walking together as a pair. Would you mind coming with me, Piglet, in case they turn out to be hostile animals? If there's two of them, I rather think there should be two of us to make it even, if my math checks out, which it often doesn't," Pooh admitted. Piglet scratched his ear in a nice sort of way and said that he had nothing to do until Friday and would be delighted to come. Really, he was just too afraid to go home alone, But it was better he be brave in front of Pooh, in case the Woozles were listening.
"I'll come," he said, "just in case it's a Woozle."
"You mean in case it really is two Woozles?" said Winnie the Pooh, and Piglet said that anyhow he had nothing to do until Friday, so off they went together. There was a small grove of larch trees just here, and it seemed as if the two Woozles, if that is what they were, had been going round this grove. So round and round this grove went Pooh and Piglet after them. Piglet passing the time by telling Pooh what his grandfather Trespassers W had done to remove stiffness after tracking, and how his grandfather Trespassers W had suffered in his later years from shortness of breath and other matters of interest, and Pooh wondering what a grandfather was like, and if perhaps this was two grandfathers they were after now, and, if so, whether he would be allowed to take one home and keep it, and what a grandfather might want for lunch, and if they like honey, and what Christopher Robin would say about his fine new grandfather. And still, the tracks went on in front of them. Suddenly, Winnie the Pooh stopped and pointed excitedly in front of him. "Look!"
"What?"
said Piglet with a jump. And then, to show that he hadn't been frightened, he jumped up and down once or twice more in an exercising sort of way. "The tracks," said Pooh. "A third animal has joined the other two."
"Pooh!" cried Piglet. "Do you think it is another Woozle?"
"No," said Pooh, "because it makes different marks. It is either two Woozles and one, as it might be, Wizzle, or two, as it might be, Wizzles and one, if so it is, Woozle. Or maybe some number of grandfathers? Hard to say, hard to say. Let us continue to follow them." So they went on, feeling just a little anxious now, in case the three animals in front of them were of hostile intent. And Piglet wished very much that his grandfather T.W. were there, instead of elsewhere. And Pooh thought how nice it would be if they met Christopher Robin suddenly but quite accidentally, and only because he liked Christopher Robin so much, and because the boy was so big and brave. And then, all of a sudden, Winnie the Pooh stopped again and licked the tip of his nose in a cooling manner, for he was feeling more hot and anxious than ever in his life before. There were 4 animals in front of them. "Do you see, Piglet? Look at their tracks. 3 as it were Woozles and 1 as it was Wizzle. Another Woozle has joined them. Or perhaps a whole mess of grandfathers." And so it seemed to be. There were the tracks, crossing over each other here, getting muddled up with each other over there, but quite plainly every now and then the tracks of 4 sets of paws. "I think," said Piglet, when he had licked the tip of his nose too, just to see why Pooh liked it and found that it brought very little comfort.
"I think that I have just remembered something. I have just remembered something that I forgot to do yesterday and shan't be able to do tomorrow, so I suppose I really ought to go back and do it now. As in right now. As in I should leave right away."
"We'll do it this afternoon and I'll come with you," said Pooh, trying to be a good friend and completely missing the fact that Piglet was scared out of his mind.
"Oh, it isn't the sort of thing you can do in the afternoon," said Piglet quickly. "It's a very particular morning thing that has to be done in the morning, and, if possible, between the hours of, what would you say the time was?"
"About 12, said Winnie the Pooh, looking at the sun.
"Between, as I was saying, the hours of 12 and 12:30. So really, dear old Pooh, if you'll excuse me." "What's that?"
There came a sharp, warbling whistle. Pooh looked up at the sky, and then, as he heard the whistle again, he looked up into the branches of a big oak tree. And then he saw a friend of his. "It's Christopher Robin," he said. "Hello, Christopher Robin."
"Hello, Pooh,"
called the boy.
"Hello, Piglet." "Oh, then you'll be all right," said Piglet. "You'll be quite safe with him. Goodbye."
And he trotted off home as quickly as he could, very glad to be out of all danger again. Christopher Robin came slowly down his tree, smiling his big, friendly smile.
"Silly old bear," he said. "What were you doing? First you went round the grove twice by yourself, and then Piglet ran after you and you went round again together, and then you were just going round a 4th time.
We were hunting Woozles, said Pooh. Or perhaps Wizzles. Or perhaps grandfathers. Maybe some combination of all those together.
Pooh, said Christopher Robin. I've been watching. There's no one here but you and Piglet. I think you've been tracking your own paw prints.
Wait a minute, said Winnie the Pooh, holding up his paw. He sat down and thought, in the most thoughtful way he could think. Then he fitted his paw into one of the tracks. It was a perfect fit, and the other looked very much a perfect fit for Piglet now that he thought about it. Pooh sighed, and then he scratched his nose twice and stood up. Yes, said Winnie the Pooh, I see now. I've been foolish and deluded, he said, and I am a bear of no brain at all.
You're the best bear in the whole world, said Christopher Robin soothingly.
Am I? Said Pooh hopefully. And then he brightened up suddenly.
Definitely, said Christopher Robin.
That's a relief, said Pooh happily. Anyhow, he added, it's nearly luncheon time. Would you care to join me?
Sounds good to me, you silly old bear.
So they fetched Piglet and went to Pooh's for lunch.
The end. Thanks for listening.